So how do people become unbearable? This includes you watching the video, not just the people around you. In this video, we will see why and how these people become unbearable, and how being unbearable to others and themselves is very important for these people. Of course, this is not a healthy way to live, but understanding the cause could bring us closer to a solution. The knowledge in this video is from a book called Neurosis and Human Growth by a famous psychoanalyst called Karen Horney. This is part 3 of the video series. The goal of this video series is to bring us closer to mental freedom. In this series on self-hate, we go deep into why human inner suffering begins. So how did we get here? In video 1 and 2, which I recommend you to watch, we saw that humans want to naturally self-actualize and become their best selves. This is the theory of all this work. But when we're young and developing, the negative energy around us causes us to deviate from this path. We then create an idealized image in our heads, and instead of trying to become our real selves, we then go on an ambitious journey called the search of glory to try to become an idealized image with disregard to our real selves. Every human likely has this idealized image of themselves, consciously or unconsciously. The idealized image promises to take away all the minor disturbances in our lives and promises us happiness. But of course, this is a trap. We will see that we have a heavy price to pay. We suffer. And the other worst part, which we'll later find out, is that we can never become this ideal image. Today we will focus on something called neurotic claims. On the search for glory to become this idealized image, the person seems to live 2 lives. On the outside, he looks very normal. He may be a mom, a dad, a community leader, a teacher, but on the inside, he lives a life of boundless possibilities, and these 2 lives do not mix. Like one of the patients said, life is awful, it is so full of reality. The neurotic hates the evidence that he's not a godlike person that he considers himself to be. But of course, the world is always reminding him that he is just a normal person like everyone else. So what does he do with all this negative feedback? He could try to ignore it, but if his personal glorification is so huge, he may conclude that there is something wrong with the world and that the world should be different. So instead of checking his illusions, he presents a claim to the outer world. He believes that he is entitled to be nicely treated by others or by fate. Everyone should cater to his needs, and it is unfair if these things don't happen. If you've enjoyed the video so far, join me on my journey to 50 subscribers by clicking the like and subscribe buttons. First of all, we must understand that the person has this ideal image because of his insecurities, his fears, and his inner conflicts. His solution of trying to become the ideal image must be satisfied or duly respected. He feels entitled to special attention, consideration from other people. He unconsciously claims that natural laws should not affect him. So he doesn't recognize that he should change himself. It is not up to him to do something about his problems, but it is up to other people to see that they do not disturb him. One example is a businessman who is very irritated because the train does not leave at a time that is convenient for him. If a close friend then tells him that it's too demanding, the businessman would say that the friend doesn't know what he's talking about. He is a very busy man, and it is reasonable to expect a train to leave at a time that works best for him. Of course, his wish sounds reasonable. We all want a train to leave at a convenient schedule, but we are not entitled to it. Here is one essential fact. A wish or need, which is in itself quite understandable, turns into a claim. The person feels it unfair and feels like they have the right to be offended if their wishes are not met. All humans have needs. This is a natural thing, of course, but in this case, these needs have turned into claims and they must be fulfilled. Sometimes the neurotic is not only unaware that he is claiming things, but he also doesn't want to see the truth. He feels entitled to many things which are indeed not his. For example, you get a parking ticket and then you get very angry when you are fined. It is understandable that you have a wish to escape the fine, but you're not entitled to being forgiven. Every neurotic has different insecurities and fears, therefore every neurotic has different claims. He feels entitled mostly to everything that is important to his particular situation. The demanding person is not only demanding to the people around him, but is also demanding to management institutions and towards life itself. An example is a patient who was shy and withdrawn. He unconsciously believed that the world should be at his service and that he should not be bothered. Another is a woman who was at the bottom, scared of doubting herself. She believed it unreasonable that a man who she wanted to fall in love with her should not do so. She believed that everything she prays for should be given to her. So what are some common examples of rights? People who have the need to always be right feel entitled to never being criticized, doubted, or questioned. The arrogant person who loves to offend other people feels entitled to never being offended. The exploitive person feels it unfair if others insist on a fair deal. Others whose life has become a game where they love to manipulate others feel entitled to fool everyone else and never to be fooled. The detached person who seems undemanding may claim that he should not be bothered and so should be left alone no matter what the case may be. The person who believes that love is an overall solution turns his need of love into a claim for unconditional and exclusive devotion no matter what the person does. These are all examples of some claims, and we should be looking for these claims in ourselves. Especially when something annoys you, try to see if there's some unreasonable claim that you may have. The goal is to remove these claims one by one. The less claims you have, the freer you'll be mentally. Even the most intelligent people are regularly caught in such mental traps. Many times, the neurotic may start to argue or become evasive if you present him with self-evident connections that are opposite to what they claim or feel entitled to. For example, if you tell him that if you want to achieve something, you must put in the work, or as long as you are arrogant, you will be vulnerable, or as long as you don't love yourself, you can't possibly believe that others will love you, the person may not believe these things. Many neurotics unconsciously hate to realize that they should be subjected to any rules, necessities, or restrictions, because in their private world, everything is possible. The recognition of any restrictions will pull them down from their godlike status into reality where they're subject to the same natural laws as everyone. They feel that they are entitled to be above the need to change. They unconsciously refuse to see that they must change their attitudes if they want to become less vulnerable or more independent or want to be able to believe in being loved. Some have claims on life in general. Of course, it would shatter their godlike image to face the fact that life is limited and uncertain. The fact that fate can strike at any moment through sickness, bad luck, death, or accidents. The fact that we can do very little about it, however much we prepare. That we cannot avoid death. The person may develop claims of being the anointed, of always being lucky, and that life should always be easy and should have no suffering. The problem is that for claims on other people, he can assert himself. But he cannot assert himself on claims to the world. So what does he do? He can deny that anything can happen to him. When he denies, he will live recklessly, like having sex with no precaution, risk being in the cold even if he is sick. When fate strikes, he will start to panic. On the outside, he seems sad that fate has struck, but the real reason is that he's sad because he's realizing that he's not godlike. Or instead of denying, he can become overcautious with his life. Because if he cannot rely on his claim of being the anointed, then he will not risk exposing himself to the fact that he's not godlike. Other people feel unfair that some other neurotic people are much better off than them. They say that James, for example, is neurotic but is not socially anxious, so I am having it worse than him. When we look deeper into these feelings of unfairness, we can see that this person feels entitled to being more gifted than everyone else and that their life should have no personal issues. This unconscious claim can show when the person is jealous of anyone who is more gifted than him. This claim of being more gifted than everyone else makes a person envious and discontent a lot of the times, but also makes it hard for the person to work on themselves because they feel like it's unfair to expect them to put in the work to solve their personal problems, and also the person feels entitled to be relieved of his difficulties without having to put in any work. So how can we know that a claim is a neurotic one? We will go through the characteristics. First of all, they're unrealistic. The person has titles which exist in their mind alone and has no consideration about how his claims must be fulfilled. A good example is a woman who feels entitled to having all her party invitations accepted and gets angry at anyone who declines, no matter how urgent the other person's issues are. Or the student who believes that everything should come easy to him and hates to study and do his assignments. The second characteristic is that the claims are egocentric. On the outside, it sounds naive and sounds like the attitude of a spoiled child, although this is not the same as that of a child, because children have not developed the ability to relate to others very well. A child doesn't understand the mom's needs, but for the neurotic, the person is so consumed with himself as he is driven by his psychic needs. If the person wants something done, everyone must drop everything that they're doing and run to his assistance. The third characteristic is that the person expects that things should come to him without him making any efforts. He cannot accept that if he is lonely, he can call up a friend. He cannot accept that if he wants to lose weight, he must eat less. Normally, the friends and family around the person will see that it's very hard to make this person happy, even if he has a lot of things that people wish for, like a house, a nice wife, or financial security. Another example is a person who goes to a therapist and believes that the therapist should heal them without them doing any of the work personally. The fourth characteristic is that the claims can be vindictive. The person may feel wronged and ask for revenge if his claims are not satisfied. So how aware are people of their claims? The more the person's life is determined by his ideal image, the more he has to stick to his claims. He doesn't have the capacity to see that his claims are offensive to other people. People cannot make him wait. He will never get older. He cannot have any accidents. The weather must always be right. Everything must go his way. These are things that he tells himself. Other people seem to be aware of their claims, and on the outside it seems like the person knows that they're impatient or knows that they hate to ask for things. But what we see from the outside and what a person feels are very different. The person knows that they're impatient, but this is very different from the person knowing that they feel entitled to other people doing exactly what the person wants. So they begin to lie to themselves. The person may quit a very good paying job without a plan for another job, and then he will call this self-confidence, which is sometimes the case, but in many times you can see that this person is reckless. He could be reckless, but then he calls it self-confidence. But many times the claims are hidden from both the neurotic and the person who is untrained to see these claims. So the person may hate the fact that his wife asks him for his time, but at the same time he will find it flattering that he is very important to his wife. Even if the person is aware of having certain claims, most times he is never aware that these claims are irrational. Of course, he cannot undermine these claims because that would mean that the person is not becoming this ideal image in their head, which they need to become so much. As long as these claims are important to him, he will build up a very valid case that will seem legitimate. He must feel that they are fair and just. Many times, the claims are justified on cultural grounds. The person may say, because I'm a woman, or because I'm a man, so I should get a higher salary. Or because I'm a man, I cannot wash the dishes. But there's no rule that says that men cannot wash dishes. The main message here is that the person feels superior than other people. So he says that because I'm something special, therefore I'm entitled to this. But of course, this is mostly unconscious. For example, those who believe that love solves everything, that love entitles one to everything, must exaggerate the value of love, and then may actually even feel more love than there is. This can create a vicious cycle, especially when we look at the claims that are on the grounds of helplessness and suffering. For example, the woman who feels too depressed and helpless to finish her work will make herself even more helpless and depressed than she actually is and will suffer more. The person who is too scared to ask for something over the phone will then actually feel shyer and more scared to ask for things, and then will feel entitled that someone else must ask for them. In this video, we can see that these claims are unjustifiable in the real world. We cannot prove that anyone is promised or entitled to anything. In the next video, we will see why the person gets so frustrated when we try to prove to them that their claims are outrageous. We on the outside see them as outrageous, but the person sees these claims as a promise to a glorious future where he becomes this ideal, godlike, glorified version of himself. He uses these claims to escape the personal responsibility, and he may temporarily escape, but he must pay a hefty price since he spends most of his energy asserting his claims by being frustrated instead of using his energies to actualize his real potentials in life. This makes his life harder every day. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, and also check out my other videos. Have a good day.